So we have a question about rapport, or in fact, a couple questions about rapport, connection, setting up your dates, or like dealing with flakes. And then how do we start this whole like rapport thing, like when we're not used to it? Because at TSL, we talk about a lot of deep stuff, and we talk about a lot of deep stuff quick. And I almost demand that when I'm bringing things up. And if you ever do a workshop, I kind of expect that you know what this is so that we can work on it, and so that we don't get stuck just working on, the basics of it. So I want to cover this, and we talk about it a lot, and it's a resource to talk about a lot. But let's get with this first thing. So when it comes down to rapport and qualification and talking to people, if you're ever not being yourself, you're failing. Now, I get it. Society puts like a lot of barriers in front of that. And like, you can't just go out and let's say you're having a bad day and just grief mop like the whole people. Or if you're ecstatic and people can't relate with you, you've got to be able to connect with them. So you got to kind of meet where they're at. But if you're not being yourself, all right, and more importantly, you're not eliciting them, then you are failing. You are screwing up at conversation. The whole point of talking to somebody is doing all the interesting little social and perhaps superficial things so that you can get the real them and that you can show the real you. And then you guys can make a decision, that won't really be spoken about, but this unwritten decision of like, wait a minute. I like you and you like me. In fact, rapport truly happens. It's a phenomenon when those things happen. When people start caring about you and liking you and caring about what you say or what you think about them when they're speaking, that's when you're in rapport and superficialities go out the window. So for instance, if you're somebody that is focused on like how much money you have and status and a lot of the stuff that Pickup talks about, which I always bypassed, was because my rapport game was so good. And the reason for that is because the more of a connection I built, the less people were dependent upon needing these outside things to like judge you for. In fact, an interesting thing is if somebody can judge you big time, like they could say like all sorts of horrible stuff or find out some secrets about your life or whatever it is. But once they get to know you, when they actually get to know you, then those things change. Okay. So when they get to know you, it's like, oh, wow. Okay. I see he made some bad choices, or I see he's not a good person. And they can actually choose to not like you, but that's much different from judgment itself. Not knowing you and judging you're a bad person, I think hurts a lot worse. Okay. And it definitely hurts if somebody says they don't like you, because they saw the real you, but that's what we want. Okay. So qualification and rapport and connection and talking to people is absolutely dependent upon you being you and them being them. So the true social artist, right, is good at expressing yourself, but then also eliciting the real self of somebody else. So a lot of times we say, hey, what are you passionate about? They give us kind of a superficial answer, and it might be something like, oh yeah, music. But they haven't really talked about who they are. So you have to understand that. And they're not giving you a superficial answer because they're a bad person. It's just because that's the nature of our culture and how we work. And you've got to know what that is. So let's get to this next thing. We were talking about flakes, right? And so you get numbers from people and, saying, I don't know if it's an age thing or what, but like, they're 24, 25, 26, and we're connecting with these people. We go on, or we plan for a date, and then somehow it flakes. Anytime you get a flake, there's a bunch of reasons for it. I mean, she may not like you. There might be, an issue that comes up with her life or whatever. But what I notice is when I connect with somebody, a new person, and I connect with them about their life and who they are, and we're like, wow, yeah, this is really cool. Let's go out sometime. They're so excited to go out and meet me that they're not going to get carried away with like, oh, I'm too tired, or I have to wake up early and get this like presentation done for work. They tend to bypass those things. And especially at that early age of, let's say, if they're 20 to 28, that's an area where there's a lot of people where their careers or their responsibilities aren't the main thing working their life, finding themselves, finding new things, interacting in those ways, like to meet somebody, to have a great adventure, to feel what it's like to be a woman who actually has a good date and things like that. Those are things that really are, they women like that. They go for it, right? They get a little bit older in their 30s. They might be a little bit more reserved and careful about who they talk to and date. So if you're getting flakes, man, that person doesn't they see you too much as of a novelty. In fact, those superficialities, like I was saying, when you first meet somebody, there's a lot of superficialities. If you're standing far away from somebody, the only thing you can literally judge about them are their superficialities. But when you actually get physically closer, emotionally closer, and you're closer about sharing your lives in different ways, and that could just be when you meet somebody, then you're not going to be as superficial. And when you can start going, man, I've seen a deeper side of you that isn't just the superficial thing, like perhaps you could exactly say this, man, you're really, really attractive. But in talking to you about, art or music or whatever it was, like, God, man, it really made me look at you in a different way. I would love to go out with you. This is awesome. And so that is a key part of it. Okay. A very, very key part of it. What I'm doing is I'm stating intent. The intent being, I want to go on a date with you. I want to have this type of date. I want it to be good. I want to enjoy the time. Now, I'm not explaining all of this, but this is all communicated with how I'm talking to him. It's like, man, I really want to go out with I want to have fun with that. That's awesome. But I'm stating it because of the deeper things that I noticed about them. If you do that, your flakes will go way, 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 way down. All right. And especially the deeper you can get to it, because remember, the true social artist is good at expressing themselves and eliciting, the real self of the person they're talking to. Okay. So basically, if I'm talking to somebody and we're talking about, music or art or, dating or whatever it is, sorry, I was trying to hold back that cough, but it just came out. The body does that sometimes. So basically they're talking about these things and I go, man, wow. Look, you're attractive, but, when you were talking about your family and, how you live and all those things, man, it really made me go wow, you're awesome. I would love to meet up with you sometime. That's super cool. All right. Or you could do, in the call before we actually started this recording, I gave the example of pushing destiny, which is something that I wrote about in 2007 or something like that, where I would say something along the lines of wow, I don't know. I would interrupt. We'd be talking for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that. And I just had to go where they had to go. And I just wanted to build a hardcore impression. Say, man, I do not know why I'm saying this, but I'm saying it. And I just think, look, if we keep talking in 2 weeks, something crazy will happen. The minimum will be close friends for the rest of our lives. I just feel that right now. So I'd say things like that with people that really made an impression on me. I would tell them that they really made an impression on me. And I'd say it's pushing destiny. And that was something that was super, super effective that hooked people in a lot of ways. When that didn't work, it was just because, when that didn't work, it would be the girl's way jaded. And then it's why am I talking to her anyway? Or I didn't really elicit enough from her or myself for her to really feel she had a connection with me to be able to say that. But it's pretty crazy, man. When you work in that way, it's key. So just think of that. If you're playing the rapport game, do it right. Get people to connect with you and elicit those connections and state your intent towards what you've noticed about them now. We even had this on the workshop where I cut in and I said something like, no, man, he was really asking this question. And I said something you're really attractive. You're clearly attractive. You get hit on by a lot of people, but what I really want to know is this. And what's so interesting is even if you read the game, they would say beauty is common, but or whatever the fuck they said, but they missed it. It was such a good point at that, but they kind of fucked it up. I'd have to reread it, but it was beauty is common, but there's more to a woman than this. What is that? They used it as a power play qualifier. But if you could really actually say, look, you're beautiful, but whatever, who cares? Who are you? Who are you? And show me you. As soon as they start to tell me who they are, the you part, I can go, wow, now I can actually choose. I can qualify. I can say I like you and I want to hang out with you, or you seem really cool. You'd be a great friend, or whatever it is. Right now, let's jump to this third thing that we were talking about. And that's when we don't know what to say, we don't know how to get to rapport. If this is a new thing for us, because it's hard, right? You're sharing a lot about yourself and you may not be used to it. How do I do that? How is it that I can, just say those things? What we have to start to be good at, and I actually see a lot of coaches talk about this that are some of the better coaches. They say, notice something about that woman. Just notice something. And so they go through these drills the guys will be like, well, I noticed her eyebrows or her eyes or whatever. And they say all this shit, right? And they get all into it and they, oh my God, I can't believe I had this amazing movement, da da da. Have this breakthrough in their workshops. But the interesting thing about that is you have to be able to notice things about people and say it. Okay. And you can't be afraid to. And so it's the simplest notion to practice this. So this is one part of it. All right. To practice this, we're basically going to say something like that's very socially acceptable. You might not know what that is, but you'd say something like, hey, wow, you have a nice smile. All right. We're just giving a compliment that's very simple and surface level towards who they are. That's obvious. Wow, you have a great sense of fashion. So I would start out with giving compliments. And this actually follows with what one thing that Doc brought up about social anxiety, would like bring up statements, that don't have much investment, that don't have much meaning behind me and much meaning behind them, and be able to put those out. Okay. And the reason why we're doing that is because we're baby stepping how we can just, assert what we notice in the moment about them. Wow, you have like an excellent sense of fashion. Wow, I have 4 sisters and like I can tell like you really know how to pick clothes well. I have 4 sisters and those tricks don't always work on me. but that wasn't one of them, but you could use that. But what I'm saying is to state in the moment what you're noticing. Man, you have really great facial features. It goes well with you. These are low-level things that are statements that we're noticing in the moment. Now, here's the interesting thing. That's the practice to start stating what you feel and what you think and what is on your mind in a baby step way. So that's the first thing you do. The second thing you do is you got to know how to structure rapport and connection and intent and all those things in a way that works for you. How that is going to be is I want you to first come up with a couple stories. All right. So if you're asking about ambition or passion, you talk about your ambition and your passion, and then start asking them, well, what does that mean to you? Like my passion is my business, or my passion is my family, or my passion is, hanging out with my friends or being accountable. Like, how does that affect you? How does that affect you in like, who are you because of it? Let them answer that. It's in some ways, there's actually an old school technique by Wayne Juggler that was called the vacuum. And I kind of took this to a different area. This guy actually pointed out, I didn't know that Wayne did this, but he's like, you do this that Wayne does called the vacuum. And he'd say like, what are you passionate about? And the girl would answer and he'd just continue to look at her. So she'd say like, I'm passionate about music. And he would just look at her and go, like as if she was supposed to state more, right? And then she would start revealing more about herself because she was nervous. Well, here's my take on that. I know that there's more to the question, so I don't do necessarily the vacuum, but I'll say like, what is it that you really find, like, what are you ambitious about? Like, I was talking about myself, but what is that to you? And then they'll say whatever. They'll say like music. I'll say, well, like how? Like how, what, do you live it in that way? Like, explain this a little bit more. Like, what is that? Like, what does that mean? So I'll continue to drive at them. And the reason for that is because I want the real self to come out. I want that real self to come out. All right. Now check this out. When the real self comes out, I now have a feeling of what I like about that. All I want you to say, because we're baby stepping it, is that if you like it, if it's a good thing, you say, man, I like that about you. That's cool. I don't meet many people like that. If you don't like it, you could say, man, that's an interesting take. I never thought about it that way. Or you could say, man, I totally disagree with what you said, but that's crazy. I like talking to you. So if we could just get these canned things, like if we're getting to a point where we're actually getting to rapport, right? We're getting to that real self being revealed. I want you to start practicing making a statement to it. And in a rapport cycle, that's the definition. Okay. The definition could be a frame. It could be intent. It could be a statement about something, but it's just defining. It's like, wow, man, I really like that about you. That's cool. Man, you have a good day. And so I want you to get used to that. And again, it could be like, man, that's really interesting. I never thought about it that way. Crazy. A lot of times, in fact, so with me with the rapport cycles, one of the reasons why I ask about all this stuff so much is when I meet a pretty amazing woman, which is rare, They give me a completely different angle on love or art or whatever it is that I'm talking about, right? And I'm going like, holy shit, I never thought of it that way. And in fact, I would totally disagree with you, but now like, this is amazing. This is cool. And so that's always really awesome whenever I have that happen in a conversation. And that's really where rapport and connection comes into play. So guys, look, if you're having conversations that don't have you in it, you're lying. You're full of shit. You're using something outside of yourself to hide something. You just build a fucking horrible life with that. All right. It's not good. If you're actually like talking to people and making connections, you won't get flakes if they really see that you're talking to them for them. Because I saw the real you, now I want to ask you out on a date. I want to go on a date with that. I want to take out your ambition or your view of family on an exploration where I can get to know that better, because that's the real beauty. And you can actually say exactly that, or whatever the topic it is, family, life, relationships, whatever topic you're talking about. And then also, if we're not used to projecting our real selves, we want to baby step that in the simplest way where we can get functionality towards. All right. So what that means is anytime you have like a huge resistance and you don't know how to do it and it's a behavioral thing and it's been all your life, that's fine. Okay. No problem. Just give it some time to change. We're going to baby step to the next functional part. The first functional part is noticing something about them. Like, oh man, that's an amazing dress. That's really cool. Something in those terms. The second thing is that when we're doing a rapport cycle, because this guy was saying he was getting in rapport cycles and getting deep, we just want to then define it, end it. When they talk about all of their life and it's amazing, you just go, man, that is really cool. I like that about you, that you shared that with me. That's awesome, man. That made my day. Let's talk later. And then if you wanted to get a little bit more ballsy, you could ask for a number, or you could say like, man, I want to see you more. And all I would do is add to it is like, man, the fact that you said that, that's really cool. Like, we should hang out. Like, how do I get a hold of you? Like to meet up. This will be a really good thing. Anyway, hopefully that helped. But rapport, all these things are big time staples of what we do. And especially if you show up on like a workshop or do any live stuff, I really expect that you know these things and can at least, like, I don't care if you mess them up, but it shouldn't be like qualification is asking a question. You should already be used to trying that and perhaps messing up at it and those types of things in order for us to work around it. And because I need you to try it. I need you to try it in 3 or 4 people in order to give you direction on what to do next. All right. So cool. Hopefully that was helpful, and we will talk in a second.